Welcome back. Test 4. Test 4 is the biggest change that we've had this year. And we talked about different skills that our students come in with and things that sometimes get thrown at them. And one of the things that we noticed that is coming back in for our men clients is a chemical wave. So we thought, why not? Let's throw it into the mix. So,
and it is a very real service happening in our salons, more than women now.
Yes, especially with our men.
Yeah.
So test 4 is going to be a men's chemical wave with a haircut and photo. So it will require a chemical wave, either partial or full, depending upon the picture chosen. There are some examples of possible photos, and they are on the last page, and so you'll see these 3 gentlemen here. One of the things I want to make sure that you understand, it will not be one of these 3. These 3 are not going to be part of what we are going to offer as possibilities. So it will be a picture similar to this. This would represent a partial perm, a full perm. So when you look at that, excuse me, you can see that that's kind of what we're looking at, and that's what we're looking for. The time allotment of this is going to be 2 hours and 30 minutes. Competitors will be shown a photo. They must reproduce it. The haircut will show some curl or wave formation and will require a chemical wave service. The photo of the desired cut will be chosen by an independent panel and will remain in a sealed envelope until the time of the competition. I'm just going to excuse myself to cough.
Okay, so the photo will be your inspiration. You have this parameters. You've got to really train your students on timing on this one because it's not a long competition. 2.5 hours for a technical haircut and a perm will go very quickly. So this one might feel a little stressful than our average just technical haircut. So really work on timing with your students on this one, and no different than a salon. Most salons you'd have a half an hour to wrap, do a client in between, and then do your finishing haircut on your client once it's done. And they need to really be diligent, I would say, on this one, of staying in contact with the technical committee while they're on the floor, especially when it comes to rinsing time, because as you know, we're trying to work on it, but we've had sink issues in the past with multiple people. We will have people rinsing for longer periods of time than we've had with color, so they really need to advocate for themselves and keep track of the time that they stand there and wait, because as you may have known if you've had a student compete before, they can usually, if it's past a certain amount of time that they've waited, they can get that time put back if they've had a considerable amount of time waiting around for the sink. So keep that in mind as well. The student has to advocate for that though, not a teacher. They can't look at their teacher and say, I've been standing here for 20 minutes. They can't do that. They have to come themselves to one of us technical committee members. If they're my competitor, they can't come to me. They'd have to go to Tracy or somebody else. But they have to advocate for themselves on the floor. So I would say when they know their perm's ready to rinse, they need to start setting a timer. And we've got to figure it out because, as we know, chemical can cause some issues.
So there's some things that we're going to set in place. First thing is that we have twice as many sinks as we had last year. Last year was an anomaly, and we had a lot of issues. We didn't have enough sinks. Colors were due to be rinsed, and so we started adding time on. We're very, very careful again. If we see a student standing for more than a minute because they couldn't get to the sink, that's time we add back on, because again, we don't want to do something that disadvantages the competitor. So with this being said, we realize that chemical processes, especially perms, need to come off when they need to come off. So we're also going to have a water station where that head could go in. That student will no longer be demerited for unauthentic practice. We just need to make sure that they're not going to be disadvantaged with an overprocessed chemical.
It could even be we need to fill up some water bottles and spray.
But we'll make sure
there's things in place for that, yeah. Because we know with a perm you're very limited on that window.
Right. So that being said, we're excited for this competition. There is not going to be wishes in this competition. It's a photo, it's a reproduction of the photo. The student is not going to get an option as to which photo they pick. It's one photo and that's it. They take the photo, they reproduce the photo to the best of their ability.
And is there, just to make it clear, because somebody will ask this, will there be a separate photo for post-secondary and secondary or senior?
There may be.
There might be. So be prepared for that. Post-secondary might have a different photo than secondary.
And so all views of the photo must be reproduced. So if the photo is on the side, that's the part that the judges will be looking for.
So if you've got this angle for your guy, that should match on that angle. Whatever happens over here could be a little different because we can't see it. But generally for men, whatever's on this side's probably on this side. Okay? If it's a full-on front, that front has to mimic the front of that photo.
So no clippers or trimmers are allowed. If there's going to be a shortcut, that's going to be probably a scissor over comb or whatever the case may be. There's no clippers, no trimmers. There's no thermal irons allowed. So there's no curl being added into that hair with a thermal iron afterwards. Straight razors can be used, but they must have a guard on them. Brushes and combs and clips are permitted. All styling products are allowed except for colored sprays, colored mousses, colored gels, colored markers. None of those can be used again. The mannequin for this test is Antonio, and if you've used Antonio before, he is a very dark, very thick-haired. It's a beautiful mannequin, as are all our mannequins. They are supplied by Pivot Point, and if you're unfamiliar with the types of mannequins that they have, I suggest you acquire some if you can. They're great for training, and the quality of the hair is second to none. They are the best mannequins we can get, and we're very grateful to have them and to have them supplied for the competition as well.
And one more question, when it comes down to finishing your haircut, are they allowed to, because I think somebody will ask this, are they allowed to use a diffuser?
Yeah, so a diffuser is a blow dryer tool, and you're absolutely allowed to use that. So that again is not a curling tool. It's a tool used to diffuse air and to not fuzz the hair. So absolutely,
okay. I just thought that will be a question that will for sure pop out. Okay.
Again, Colleen and I are not professional video makers. We did this basically to try and help explain the scope to people. I know there's a lot of angst when you pick up a big document like this one with all the pages, and there's so much, and you're flipping from one page to the other, and they're difficult for us to write as well. We try very hard to make sure that we're inclusive in our language and to make sure that we're explaining things. And honestly, I feel like we could write a novel on every single test that we do. We cannot possibly cover everything in a written document. But know this, as we're moving forward, we're trying to align as closely as we can with skill development for students. And at a senior competition, these are the students who are going to represent our profession. We want to make sure that they're well trained, they're well prepared, and that they can execute clients' wishes. So we're following along again with nationals as closely as we can. Of course, we know that national competition scopes change quite frequently as well, but we feel like we're in close alignment to what's happening in all of the skills areas, and we're excited to see what the students bring. We are here for students. That's our sole purpose of being on these committees, is trying to further our trade and trying to work with our youth. So if you have questions, please ask. We are here to advantage your student in every way possible. Our competitors are fierce, and we're so proud of them. So
yeah, and we in creating these documents understand that there's a diversity of educators and students and economic backgrounds of where your school may be located, and we try to keep all of those things in mind and make the competition as level and fair of playing ground for each individual. So know that Tracy, our fearless leader, has taken a lot of care and consulted with all of us committee members to make sure that we're making everything authentic and valuable for you as a teacher, loving what you do, and for your student to encourage them into coming into this wonderful industry.
So with that being said, we're going to move on to, we're going to look at some mannequins in our next segment, and just go through some points as best we can to try to explain with some visual cues for you. Again, if there's further questions from any of this, feel free to contact any one of us, and we're happy to, again, explain it to you and walk you through the process and what it looks like. And again, I'm just going to make one more cautionary remark, and that is, be careful who you're getting your information from. The technical committee is well versed as to what the scope is, what the interpretation of the scope should be, and while there may be some thoughts about how to push the scope, pushing the scope is never a good idea, because really the scope is there to be an advantage to your competitor. We try to make sure that the student understands what's in here. So if you have questions, please ask.
And we do understand that, like 5 years ago, pushing the scope was a thing.
Which
it's
makes
not
it confusing.
anymore. It's not anymore. So that question, broadly asked by many people in the past, that is no more. We are going to commercial. We are going to real everyday client. That is the key factor in all 4 competitions. Your everyday real client.
That's what's happening at World Skills Competition, National Skills Competition, and so that's what has to happen in our provincial. And I think that's been confusing in the past. We've had things in there that say it's not OMC, and yet it was very, very close.
Yeah.
We are very far away from OMC at this
and
point.
We get that we've transitioned because we had the WEFs 5 years ago, then we didn't have the WEFs, we had the blow drying techniques, we don't have that. Like, we're understanding, we're trying to streamline it and make it more relevant for everybody.
Right, very transparent. We want it very transparent so that everybody's on a level playing field. So.